So, today is April 7th, 2020. This is a special meeting of the members of the State Liquor Authority. It's being conducted pursuant to the Governor's Executive Order, allowing us to hold these meetings without all the members being present. We have here in Albany, but this meeting is being recorded and will be available, recording of it, on our website shortly. In Albany, we have Chairman Bradley. By phone, we have Commissioner Ford and Commissioner Fan. Also, we have Council Meyerhoff by phone, and myself, Secretary Donahue, here in Albany with the Chairman. We have two matters on today's calendar, both requests from Council's office for summary suspension orders. The first item is agenda number 510M. It's Swanee House Ltd. At this point, I'll turn the matter over to Council.
Thank you, Tom. Gary Meyerhoff, General Counsel to the State Liquor Authority. By phone, we are asking the full board to consider a summary suspension for Swanee House Limited, doing business as Swanee House, a licensed restaurant in Buffalo, New York. We learned that Swanee House had been visited and shut down by the Erie County Department of Health last week for violating the Governor's Executive Order 202.3, which prohibits service on premises by any restaurant, including licensed restaurants. We obtained papers from Erie County, and my office and our enforcement bureau have been in touch with Erie County Health Inspector and with the local sheriff's office, which investigated a complaint at this location that they were serving multiple people inside the premises. Our understanding of what happened from these sources is that the health inspector went to the scene at 8:30 p.m. on March 27th and sat there for about a half hour waiting for the sheriffs to arrive, and during that time observed multiple people inside the premises entering through the back door, and a female bartender was serving inside who was later identified as the co-licensee. When the sheriffs arrived, they tried to get in through the front door, but the door was locked, went around to the back. They witnessed 12 people serving inside, and they issued a citation from the Department of Health, which we've included in your materials, which shut the place down immediately. They dispersed the crowd. We also sent you separately a video that was taken by the complainant. Apparently, the complaint came in. The complaint came in from somebody who had been inside and witnessed the crowd, and took a short video, which gives you some sense of what was going on inside. That led to the later visits by the health department and the sheriff. There's, in our view, no question that this is a direct violation of the order that prohibits service inside the premises. This incident took place 11 days after the governor issued that order. There's no question that the people inside knew that they were not supposed to be serving, because when confronted by the sheriff, the first question was, can't we serve them while they're waiting for their takeout? The fact that the front door was closed either evidences just knowledge of the order itself, or worse, knowledge that, an effort to conceal the violations that were taking place inside. The Department of Health in Erie County apparently has a process that allows premises that are shut down for health reasons to submit a corrective action plan, and then that will get processed and they'll be allowed to reopen. At the time we first learned about this, it was unclear whether the Department of Health would keep the place closed indefinitely, or at least until the restrictions were lifted. We later learned, so we initially simply served a notice of pleading charging the violations, and you have a copy of that notice of pleading there in your materials. Two charges, one for failure to follow the regulations, and a second for failure to supervise. We found out on Friday that the corrective action plan had already been submitted and that the Department of Health was going to rule on it and likely reopen the location, and that's why we decided to move forward with a summary suspension order that wouldn't have been necessary if the place was entirely closed. So we presented that to the board for its consideration. The standard here is whether or not there is a sufficient risk to public health and safety that would warrant emergency action. We don't think there's any doubt that in the world we currently live in, with people mostly stuck at home watching television nonstop, that it would be impossible for licensed restaurants to not know what the rules are at this point. And yet some, not a lot, but some, are simply ignoring them. This is one of them. That is conduct that suggests that, in our view, and we suspect we suggest that it should also be in the members' view, that this is an operator not to be trusted to follow the law, and for that reason we request a summary suspension of this premise.
Commissioner Fan, any questions? Commissioner Fan, do we still
sorry, I was on mute. No, I do not have any questions.
have... Commissioner Ford, any questions?
Just a couple. The complaint originally came from the sheriff's through the sheriff's department. This anonymous video that was sent to them.
I believe it was sent to the Erie Department of Health, and they coordinated with the sheriff's department to visit the place, to visit the location, and then waited outside for the sheriff to arrive while observing, and that the information, some of the information we provided is based on the investigators' observations outside of the premises.
Okay. So, but do we have any verification that the video was in fact this location and was taken after March 16th?
All we know is that the video is what we have representation from the Department of Health that this is the video that they received, and then the corroboration of the conditions that are that can be seen in the video by the visual inspection and then the issuance of the order by the Department of Health and the sheriff.
Okay. Yeah, it was about 12 people what I counted on the video, so that would make sense. Do we know if the place has been reopened by Department of Health? It said they intended to, did they?
They have not done so yet. We're coordinating with them.
Okay. All right.
Chairman Bradley, any questions?
No.
All right. Commissioner Fan, you ready to vote?
Yes, I vote to summarily suspend this license because the licensee has permitted a condition that's detriment to public health and for failure to complying with the governor's order to cease operation during COVID-19 crisis.
Commissioner Ford.
I think it's pretty clear that licensee was trying to skate the line here and be able to do a little business when they really weren't supposed to be allowing people to congregate. So I think it's a clear violation of the executive order, and I vote to summarily suspend as well.
Chairman Bradley.
So I agree with Council Meyerhoff. It's clear everyone is aware of these rules at this point in this in what's going on throughout the country and particularly in New York State, and that the risk public congregations pose to the effort to try to combat that. and there's no clearer threat to public safety and welfare than a direct violation of the governor's executive order, which was instituted exactly for the protection of the public health, safety, and welfare. So I vote to summarily suspend.
All right, the second item we have is 510N, Terralty and Marford Restaurants, Inc. This is also a request for a summary order of suspension.
Yes, thank you, Tom. This matter also came to us from the Erie County Department of Health. The restaurant, the licensed premises is named Terralty and Marford Restaurants, Inc. It's doing business as AJ's. It's on Main Street in Clarence, New York. Similar to the one we just discussed, it was the Erie County Department of Health that received the complaint. This one was not a video complaint, but the complainant did say that not only were there people inside this location, but this location had simply not obeyed the order at all, and that this had been the case since the 16th when the order was put in place. Acting on that information, the health inspector went to the licensed premises around 6:30, also on March 27th, with another inspector, and while they were sitting there waiting for the sheriffs to arrive, they saw 11 people inside the premises. They sat there and watched these people. A couple people left while they were there, but I think only 2 left, and the rest were there for the full 30 minutes that they were sitting there. The sheriff arrived. They were greeted by a male who identified himself as the owner. The paperwork we have, and perhaps the investigators, didn't actually confirm what this individual's name was, only that he had identified himself as the owner. His response to why they would be in violation of the governor's order was, quote, "I cannot stop them," end quote. He was not even prepared with the usual response that we've seen in these cases. Well, these people are just sitting here waiting for their takeout orders. So he was issued the health closure order, and the place has been closed since then. As I mentioned, with respect to the prior matter, the Department of Health in Erie County received a corrective action plan from this restaurant on Friday. It was authored by one of the individuals who appears on the license as a named principal, so that's a direct communication from the licensee. The licensee certainly took no issue with the fact that, the licensee did not protest that someone had taken over his place and operated it without his knowledge, suggesting that the individual accurately identified himself as the owner when he did so on the 27th. The place remains closed. Under these circumstances, I think one of the points that we mentioned is it's certainly not an accident that somebody complained that there have continuously been people in this location. Then law enforcement shows up and finds people in that location. The complaint was corroborated by this visit. This is again a circumstance where it is really impossible for the owners of this establishment to not know that what they were doing was not permitted. The really ridiculous response from the owner that he couldn't stop them from being inside, it just shows he was so caught, so nailed by law enforcement for the violation of this order that he really didn't even have a credible excuse to offer. Of course, he could stop serving them. He could ask them to leave. He could call the police or the health department if people refused to leave his premises after somehow strong-arming their way in there, which is not what happened in our estimation. This is another circumstance where emergency action is necessary to protect the public health and safety for the violation of the governor's executive order, and we ask that a summary suspension occur with respect to this premise.
Commissioner Fan, any questions?
So the idea is that the Department of Health is going to give them the right to reopen, but that they will not be selling liquor until this matter gets resolved in a disciplinary method, like through our agency. Is that the idea?
Correct. We can't control whether the Department of Health can reopen the premises based on its decision to close it, but we can suspend the license, which would have the effect of prohibiting them from selling alcohol with their to-go and delivery orders, which presumably would be permitted by the Department of Health if they're allowed to reopen.
Okay.
Commissioner Ford?
So you're saying that the person who filed the corrective action plan is, I guess, the real owner, not the person who said, I can't stop them?
No. Let me rephrase and clarify. From the records we have, we do not know if we do not know the name of the person. The name of the person who said, I am the owner, was not recorded by the sheriff's office or the health department. So I suppose there is some concern that someone who was not the actual licensee was in there. That would mean that the licensee was not aware of what was going on in his restaurant if that was the case. But we do not think that is likely because an innocently presented corrective action plan that says we're going to follow the order now was presented by the licensee without protest that what had happened to that point was unfair in any way, that the Department of Health had closed the place down previously. They were now asking to be reopened. I suppose in much the way one would ask to be reopened if the Department of Health closed down premises for having, mice activity or some other kind of health condition that would require a corrective action plan to allow them to reopen.
Was there any sign of doors being locked, a side door, back door being used for entrance to conceal what was going on?
We do not have we do not have a record of that here. Only the conduct that suggests a consciousness of guilt is the exchange with the owner, who really had no excuse or defense.
Okay. All right, I'm good. Thank you.
Chairman Bradley, any questions?
No.
All right then, Commissioner Fan, you ready to vote?
I vote to summarily suspend this license. It's very disappointing that this licensee has chosen to permit a condition that's detrimental to public health, and it's disappointing that they have chosen to violate the governor's executive order relating to COVID-19. Considering that this happened 11 days after, it's, disappointing that they have done 10 more days of business, on the backs of the public health. And so I vote to summarily suspend.
Commissioner Ford.
I vote to summarily suspend, all on the same grounds.
Chairman Bradley.
I vote to summarily suspend. The governor's executive order, which he signed on March 16th, cannot be more clear. Any restaurant or bar in the state of New York shall cease serving patrons food or beverage on premise effective at 8 p.m. on March 16th. This happened long after that executive order was signed. To me, it doesn't matter who the person that the sheriff approached when they entered the place. That person took ownership of the place when the investigation was done. I applaud Erie County Department of Health and the county sheriff for actively enforcing the executive order, and I vote to summarily suspend.
All right then, Chairman, I don't have any other matters. Anything you want to bring up?
No, thank you.
We're adjourned.
Gary, thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.